We're here with Assemblyman Troy Singleton to talk about a couple of bills that he's introduced to overhaul campaign finance law and pay-to-play laws. Assemblyman, thank you for speaking with us. Before we get into the specifics of what your proposed laws are, can you tell us what the current situation is with political donations and what's wrong with it, and what prompted you to develop this legislation?
Well, this issue has arisen. I think the Citizens United case really drove a large discussion throughout our country on campaign finance reform. And importantly to me on this issue in particular is when you see the amount of money that's being thrown around and the money that's thrown around with the lack of transparency associated with it makes the average voter and any of us sort of skeptical about who the candidates are listening to and what is the agenda behind what they're proposing. So the idea behind our proposals that we've authored is to take the veil of secrecy away and make sure that everyone at least knows who's donating, and then the electorate will make a decision whether or not they believe that those donors have influenced the actions of the candidate that they're supporting.
Okay, so let's go into some of the specific proposed bills that you've introduced. The first one, 83902, would change the reporting requirements. Tell us about that.
Sure. So right now, when a 527, these issue advocacy campaign groups, when they come in, especially in the states like New Jersey, there is no requirement for them to list their donors, the amount of money they received by those donors. And in fact, when they're engaged in these activities, you never know who's the sort of behind the curtain. So the proposal we've offered basically brings sunlight to that issue. So if you're going to donate, if you're going to engage in these issue advocacy campaigns, you're going to have to disclose your donors. You're going to have to disclose where your money is coming from and who you're supporting and why, so that the public has an opportunity to look at that data and, again, make a determination of whether or not the individual they're supporting is worthy of their vote. I think too often we try and scare people into voting against our opponents rather than voting for us on the content of our ideas. And one way that folks are successful in doing that is they put out these fanciful commercials and literature and they hide behind the veil of secrecy. We want to make sure that everyone knows who's engaged in this game of politics we have in our state and what their intentions are.
And what level of elected office would this apply to?
Well, this would apply with the 527s when they're instituted, these issue advocacies. We've seen them on all levels, actually. We've seen them happen in school board races, legislative races, gubernatorial races, you name it, across the board, local and municipal elections. So whenever you register with the IRS as a 527 issue advocacy campaign effort, you will have to disclose your donors here in the state of New Jersey, and I think that's appropriate.
Looking at the companion bill 83903, that would modify some of the current laws regarding pay-to-play. Can you explain what pay-to-play is and why it's a problem and what this proposed bill would alleviate?
Sure. So the idea conceptually behind this, the colloquialism of pay-to-play, is that individual donors make donations of varying degrees of size to elected officials and in turn receive a benefit because of those donations. And to any of us, and we've seen this through, if you listen to the stuff on the federal level, it galls any of us to think that anyone can buy our government. And I think what we need to do is get away from the patchwork of issues we have on pay-to-play, because there are patchwork laws all throughout the local governments and counties, et cetera, and create a uniform state law that really addresses this issue. And the way to address it and more appropriately is with more disclosure, quite honestly, to make sure that everyone knows who's donating and why, and allow the electorate to make a firm decision based on that information whether or not the person who's received these contributions are doing those at the behest of whoever gave it to them, or they're really looking at the issues for the value that they are and making a determination pro or con as they should move forward.
Okay, now both of these bills have been introduced to the State and Local Government Committee, which you chair. What's the path moving forward for these?
Just a slight correction. The bills actually were assigned to the Judiciary Committee, which I unfortunately I don't have the purview over. But I've talked to the chairman of that committee. I'm going to continue to talk to the chairman, great legislator, and Assemblyman John McKeon, and talk to Assemblyman McKeon about advancing these bills for a hearing. So hopefully, once we get through our summer recess, which is about to be upon us, early in the fall, we'll be able to do that. I think it's apropos considering all the stuff that's going on the federal level right now that we're hearing, and campaign finance being a core conversation going on at this time, for us to have that discussion hopefully in the fall.
Now, if I were cynical, I would say that your colleagues have all been elected using the current system. How do you get the buy-in from your colleagues on something that may be something that they're not used to, or may mitigate some of their efforts in terms of being reelected?
I think at the end of the day, we all want folks to support us based on the content of our ideas and the work that we've done on behalf of our bosses, who are the residents that we represent. And I think if given the opportunity, each and every one of us feel comfortable putting our ideas in front of the electorate and having them vote up or down, as they do each and every other November for us in the Assembly, or whether or not they want to support us or not. So I'm going to make that case to all my colleagues. I'm going to tell them that I think this is important. From what I've heard and listening just to the national debate, folks are starving for this type of legislative action. They want to make sure that their government is not bought. They don't like to think that elections are already rigged for those with the well-heeled pockets and the most influence. We want to make sure that we return this back to a government by the people and for the people. And the best way to do that is to create transparency in campaign finance, and that's what we're endeavoring to do.
Assemblyman Singleton, thank you very much.
Thank you.